Daniel Sports Central, we go for a college football game preview and prediction on the 2022 Frisco Bowl matchup between the North Texas Mean Green and the Boise State Broncos. Both teams have had good seasons getting to this point. You got North Texas, who finished out the season at 7-6. This team made it to the Conference USA Championship game, ended up losing to UTSA, so they finished out as the runner-up in the Conference USA. And they're taking on a team that was the runner-up of their conference as well, and that's Boise State. The Broncos lost to Fresno State for the Mountain West Championship, so definitely a disappointing way to end off the season, even though it still was a good season for the Broncos. They were undefeated in conference this season otherwise before losing to Fresno State in the championship game. But I mean, a 9-4 record, not a bad season for Boise State to this point. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this match here today, starting with your team trends. North Texas lost to UTSA 27-40. It was a final score there. So once again, a disappointing loss, but UTSA was far and away the most complete team in the Conference USA this season, so it's well-deserved for UTSA. And North Texas is 7-6 on the season, and I mean, you compare them with Boise State, you get the Broncos, who lost to Fresno State 16-28, and Boise State, of course, I mean, it looked like they were the best team in the Mountain West for a long time this season. But Fresno State really, I mean, after starting 1-4, Fresno State won 8 straight and got to the Mountain West Championship and ended up winning it outright. So for Boise State, that's a tough finish, but in the end, 9-4 season once again is not that bad for the Broncos, and it sets up a pretty good matchup here in the Frisco Bowl. Games to be on Saturday, December 17th in Frisco, Texas. Your kickoff is 9:15 p.m. Eastern, so we got a late night kickoff here for the Frisco Bowl. For North Texas especially, it's a later kickoff. It'd be 8:15 Central. For Boise State, more or less normal, 7:15, I believe, Mountain Time for Boise State here. Spread's going Boise State by 10.5, so the Broncos are actually favored by a significant amount for a bowl game here. Over-under is 56.5, and the FPI is going with the Broncos as well here, 61.5%. Not too surprising, seeing Boise State as the favorite here. I mean, they've played better during the season. Defensively, they're a much better team. They've been more consistent. So it makes sense why Boise State is favored, even though I still feel like North Texas stands a chance here. I mean, they've proven this season that they can beat good teams and be dominant as well. So, I mean, North Texas is very much in this game. Yeah, even though Boise State is still favored by a touchdown and a field goal here. Series history, it is tied 3-3. The last game was in 2000 when Boise State won that matchup. Stat comparison for this one, North Texas is 31st in points per game, 108th in points allowed. So defensively, I briefly mentioned that earlier. Defensively, North Texas is not a very good football team. They're allowing an average of 32 points a game, which is once again one of the worst in the country. Offensively, they're not terrible. They're getting 34 points a game, but once again, on defense, that's what matters right now for North Texas. They got to be better defensively, and that's what hurt them at several points this season, and we saw that in the Conference USA Championship when they allowed 48 points to UTSA. Passers game, they're 32nd. Rushers game, 33rd. So overall, they got some talent there. And then you got for yards allowed, you're 114th in passing, 103rd in rushing. So in both passing defense and rushing defense, not all that great. And if you compare that to Boise State, they're 53rd in points per game, 11th in points allowed. So you got a strong defense here in Boise State. They're 107th in pass yards a game, 29th in rush yards. So a strong rushing game, especially with George Halani, who is the top in the backfield this season. And then they're 3rd in pass yards allowed, 31st in rush yards allowed. So a strong passing defense, defensive secondary here with Boise State, something to keep in mind. But, I mean, the quarterback situation for Boise State has been a bit complicated this season. I mean, for a time it was the talented quarterback Hank Backmeyer, but since then he ended up getting injured. So it turned out to be Talon Green taking over. And he's been the starter for the majority of the season ever since. So it's kind of been a roller coaster of a season for Boise State, but considering all that's gone on, I feel like it still has been a good season for the Broncos. And the rushing game hasn't been all that terrible. Once again, I mentioned George Halani, who has rushed for over 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns on the season. If you look at North Texas, I mean, you don't have too many big standouts. I mean, you got the starting quarterback, Austin On, if I'm pronouncing that right. He's put up over 3,300 yards, 32 touchdowns, 13 picks. So he has thrown a decent amount of interceptions, but I mean, 3,300 yards isn't all that bad. So he's definitely a quarterback that shows potential. But yeah, otherwise, there's not too many big standouts offensively for North Texas. I mean, their top receiver, Roderick Burns, he's put up over 600 yards on the season of receiving and a touchdown as well. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, both teams got talent on offense. It's just the defense. There's a big difference there. You got North Texas, who is 108th, versus Boise State, who is 11th. Your recent matchups: North Texas lost to UTSA once again, 27-48. They beat Rice to finish out the regular season, 21-17. Lost to UAB by 20. Beat Florida International 52-14. There's one of those dominant wins. They also beat Western Kentucky 40-13. So, I mean, I know Florida International was a pretty terrible team this season, but Western Kentucky wasn't bad. They finished out at 8-5 on the season, and I mean, you went to their house and beat them 40-13. That was one of the more impressive wins of the season for North Texas. That shows this team's potential as well. We saw them blow out a good Western Kentucky team. I mean, that's their ceiling right there. And if we see that team in this matchup, I think North Texas definitely has a chance here. And if you look at Boise State, they lost to Fresno State 16-28, beat Utah State 42-23, also beat Wyoming on the road by 3, beat Nevada 41-3, lost to BYU by 3, 28-31. So there's one of those close losses for Boise State. And if you compare them with North Texas, I mean, Boise State has been more competitive in their games and even in their losses this season. Your key points for this one: North Texas, they've shown potential on both sides of the ball. Austin Hahn has passed for over 3,000 yards. It's been a good season for him. I mean, and that's something to keep in mind. And for Boise State, they're going to have to do a good job of stopping the passing game. That's the main way that North Texas is able to have success on offense. That's something to keep in mind, even though backfield isn't all that terrible. They got a deep backfield in North Texas as well. But defensively, going to need a strong game here for North Texas if you want to hang on in this matchup, because defense has been the one way that this team has blown several games this season. And I mean, there are many examples of this. If you look at your past 3 games, allowed 41 to UAB, allowed 48 to UTSA. Can't be allowing 40 points in this game and expect to win it. But as for Boise State, the Broncos finished out as the Mountain West runner-up consistently, have been a better team this season versus North Texas. And you also could argue that Boise State has had a stronger schedule versus North Texas, who is in the Conference USA. So a better record and a better strength of schedule. That is an advantage for the Broncos here. And they got an impressive running back in George Halani. Definitely going to have a key impact in this one. But that said, let's get to the prediction here for North Texas and Boise State coming up here in the Frisco Bowl. And I'll be going with Boise State to win this one 31-27. I've got North Texas putting up a fight here. I mean, this game is also in their home state, so keep that in mind. And I wouldn't be surprised if North Texas fans show up. This could be a competitive game here. And I think in the end, it's going to be that way. It's a night game, but I'm going to take Boise State to win this one 31-27. I could see this game honestly becoming a pretty high-scoring one. That's definitely a possibility. And quite honestly, if you think North Texas is going to win this game, take the over 100%, because North Texas's defense has allowed a lot of points this season. And the main way that North Texas would win this one is if it was a shootout, a high-scoring game. But if you're picking Boise State, you can take the over or the under. Personally, I'm taking the over no matter what here. I think this game is it's going to be a higher scoring one, I do think, and I'm right around that 56.5. I've currently got 58 points projected. So I will say this though, 31-27 is my projected final score. If the over/under shifts over the course of the week, say if the over/under turns out to be 59 or so, I will be taking the under for this game. So keep an eye on that. But I've got Boise State winning this one 55%, North Texas to cover the spread. I do think North Texas covers, and it's going to be a competitive game in the end. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup, and I appreciate you guys watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.